Hey everybody, Alan Brocken, the cool dad everybody's talking about. Here with part two of my story, the most significant award I've ever received. In part one, I talked about life leading up becoming a traveling consultant, and this post picks up where I've just walked through a portal into this new life of traveling consulting. The best way I can describe my first year of consulting is that it was periods of technological euphoria. I got to see some of the coolest stuff ever, saw pre-release things, I got to play with technology that never became a thing. It was amazing. But that technological euphoria was punctuated by moments of absolute terror. Because this job was scary. Like, it was just, the stakes were high, everything had to be perfect, it was tough. So I got hired, I lived in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, flew up to Minneapolis for my first day of work to get onboarded and all that. And, spent the week up there getting acclimated to the company, got home. Following Monday, there wasn't really a plan yet exactly what I'd be doing or where I'd be going. And all of a sudden, the following Monday, it's like, hey, tomorrow, Tuesday, I need you to go to Minneapolis for 3 weeks of training. Just out of nowhere. This was not expected. It was supposed to happen farther out in the year, and a slot opened up or whatever. And so it's like, wow, all right, well, I was shocked, right? Despite knowing it was possible that I was going to have to do this, just all of a sudden the reality of really leaving my family behind for a long period of time hit me. And, I just took a while to process it. It was tough. But I was kind of like, well, I need to put my best foot forward. I need to get as much training and be ready to go for this thing. So what's that going to look like? So I made arrangements, went off to Seattle, and my family was a little bewildered by the whole thing. It was really sad, actually. But when the training ended, and the training was like this rah Tony Robbins seminar, and some of the best professional development training I've ever taken. I mean, there's classes and instructors from that I still use that content today all the time. So it was great. But at the time, my company was known for just this grueling training schedule, right? You would start the training classes sharp at 8, so like the bus would pick you up from wherever at like 7, so you had time for breakfast, and then you're there at 8, and then you don't end until 8 p.m. usually, 8 p.m. at night. Like it's a full day. And Saturdays too are pretty grueling. And that made it tough for me because I'm on the West Coast, my family's in Central Time Zone, like just catching the kids before bedtime was just tough. I sweated that because I really wanted to have time to connect with my family, and we were like this. It was pretty bad. And then disaster struck. So it's the coldest February in decades. Our furnace caught on fire. So my wife's totally overwhelmed with the enormity of the emergency. She's trying to figure this out. I can just hear, like in my mind, her desperate cries for help. What do I do? How do I deal with this? And trying to give her some kind of aid when there's really nothing I can do about it. But luckily, her parents lived in town. They had a place to stay while it got sorted, and that kind of got worked out. But it was just not like this level of whoa wasn't really something I considered, or that there'd be these big disasters that I wasn't around to help out with. So when I finally got home after just brutal travel, I mean it's a whole story in itself. It'd be a whole nother video about the last week I was at this training. But, we're just so happy. And the kids were happy and I was happy. I don't even have the words to describe what it was like being gone that long in a row, not seeing my kids and wife, and it was tough. But then it was just far too short because the next Monday, boom, I'm off again. And, staying in a hotel and working with customers now. So, I mean, some of you have lived this traveling, sales, consulting, whatever lifestyle. But if you haven't, it kind of looks like this. Monday, if I'm going to a client, I'm up at like 5 a.m., 4:30, something like that. So I can get to the airport, get my flight out, with the goal of being there about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Because it's where I lived, it was kind of far from everything. And then, because you spent the morning on an aircraft and you were doing all this stuff, you'd end up in the evening having to catch up on your stuff so that you could get your billable hours. Like as a consultant, your whole life was billable hours. So your evenings were full of trying to either make up hours or deal with your boss's stuff. And so, Monday, if you worked 4 hours after getting off at the client, kind of got an 8-hour day there. Then Tuesday, you're going to try to work at least 12 hours, and same thing on Wednesday, so that you've got a good bucket of hours packed up so that when Thursday you can only get in 10 because you're flying home or whatever. You've got a solid 42 going into Friday morning, because Friday then is going to be all this corporate meetings. It's going to be mandatory training, it's going to be team building, it's going to be all this stuff. And then, hopefully then to make your numbers work out, you don't have to work too many hours on Saturday. And that would be a light week. I mean, that's just the way it works. And it wasn't just my company. I mean, I don't know that it's any different now. I mean, as much as we talk about trying to take care of your people and whatnot, the business model is built around billing 40 hours a week. And so to do that, you got to do a lot of extra stuff, especially if you're traveling all the time. And as brutal as that all sounds, like being home on Friday, I was lucky. I was fortunate. I know people with different managers that they didn't sort of respect that or didn't make that a thing. I know plenty of consultants that on Friday they were still at their customer and they were flying out on Sunday. So I had it kind of lucky that at least I was home on Friday, that sort of thing. But hey, it was not easy. The whole goal here was to hit 110% attainment. And that's really just a billable hours thing about making sure that companies making money. Because if you didn't hit 110%, you kind of only met expectations. And so the bonuses and payouts and stuff were a lot less. And so, I really, the whole goal was to, have money to do these cool things and to retire and all that. And so I kind of needed to get, a decent rating at work to get those bonuses. And, to be clear, I knew this is what I was getting into, but there's one thing to hear about it or look at math on a piece of paper. It's another thing to live, getting on an airplane, eating airport food, sleeping in a hotel, all of that. It's just grueling. And so then a pattern developed when I would call home. One of my kids would get on the line and would say, "Hey, Daddy, what did you do today?" Daddy? I had nothing. I was literally out of words. After a brutal travel day, verbally jousting with my customers, and just managing all this stuff that work wanted me to do that wasn't necessarily the job, but you got to kind of go over and above if you're going to do well. I just didn't have any words left in my brain. Plus, my kids did not want to hear about RSA versus AES encryption algorithms. Like, what I was doing for work was not relatable at all. And so day after day, I found myself in the same place, leaving my family hanging on the end of a dead phone because I just run out of words. On more than one occasion, I'd end with a weak "love you" and just sat there broken in the hotel room with grief. I mean, what kind of father can't even hold a 5-minute conversation with their family?